How you doing, guys? My name is Iron Books, aka Juiced Primate. If you've seen my workout videos, but today is going to be something different because it's on a whole other channel. I am going to be reviewing part 1 of Hyperion. First things first, I'm going to talk about the cover because I'm one of those guys that judges every book by its cover. It's actually a pretty nice cover. I like the rustic yellow that it has, and I like the dots that describe all 7 of our characters. Don't know what the heck this is. This might be revealed somewhere later on in the story. Who knows? But overall, it's a decent cover. I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 10. No, 2.5 out of 5. Decent cover. But anyways, I'm going to be reviewing the first part of, I believe, a 5-part book. The first part went from the prologue all the way to page 100. Just so you guys know, please don't spoil anything in the comments. So, Hyperion. Overall thoughts is the first thing I'm going to talk about. My overall thoughts, a bit of a slow start, but it became interesting very, very fast. And by the way, I'm going to eat while I'm doing this, just so you guys know. Very slow at the start, though I do think it's due to one thing that I'll be talking about during plot. First things first, though, I'm going to be talking about characters. So how I'm going to set up my reviews are, it will be characters, it will be plot, it will be world building, and then it will be reactions. So what gave me a reaction? It could be a negative reaction, it could be a positive reaction. What gave me an overall reaction to the book? That's going to be the last thing I talk about. The first thing we're going to talk about is characters. Now, like I said earlier, there are 7 characters in this book. The main person we are following, at least so far in the story, is the consul. Now, the consul is... Again, this is only the first part, so not much has been said yet. I find the consul to be an interesting character. So far, he hasn't really done anything big, besides the intro, where he's kind of a watcher for a planet. Again, I'd have to reread, because I'm not good at remembering stuff. But the Hedgemy consul. And, again... First part of the book, not much has been said about him, but overall I like the character. I like the description of how he looks, just like a broken down character that has had some stuff happen to him in the past that has led to him acting the way he does. And he drinks whiskey, and I'm a whiskey guy, so that's pretty cool as well. There is one part of the story. And by the way, spoilers for the first part of Hyperion, just so you guys know. So, prologue to page 100. The interaction he had with Father Hoyt was a very interesting one, and I didn't know how to really take it. I didn't really think he was going to do what he was going to do, which was basically interrogate Father Hoyt for information on what actually happened with the Bikura village. I'll talk about that in plot. Or with Father Hoyt specifically. It was interesting the way he went about it. And the reveal during that scene is a very nice reveal. It's honestly something I didn't really expect. Well, I expected once the Father Hoyt clutched his chest, but beyond that, it was a very nice scene, very well written. And let me take a bite. 1 second. I didn't expect the consul to do that. But then it gives a very interesting description when he's holding Father Hoyt up on his shoulders, going back to his ship. The description of him, and I'll have to do better at these reviews. I have to actually get sticky notes so I know where specific stuff is. This is my first time doing it, just so you guys know. So I'm not very good at this at first. Him holding him like a child. And I forgot the exact line. I might actually be able to look for it here. But it was describing him as having a previous experience with a child. There it is. Here it is. I'll read it out. Last sentence. Once a parent to a child now dead, the consul walked on, knowing once again the sensation of bearing a sleeping son to bed. That one line already upped the characterization for the consul, in my opinion. Made him very, very interesting, and it made me honestly hyped for part 2 to see what the story is going to bring forth. Now the other characters. There is Father Hoyt, like I described before. He is someone who is affected by a specific parasite, I think it's a parasite, specific parasitic thing during his story. I might actually talk more about that in plot. But he's just a Catholic priest who is now with the group as well, journeying to Hyperion, which is what the book is named after. There's also a detective woman, I believe, hold on, let me get her name real quick. It might actually be in the back. No. Okay, hold on. No, not Sympha. Sorry, guys. I might actually stop this real quick. The woman's name is... I'll just stop this real quick just so I can find the woman's name. So, found the name, Braun Lamia, who is a detective along with the journey. Then there is a other pilgrim. They're all called pilgrims because they're going to be going through a journey to one specific area, to another specific area in Hyperion. Martin Silenus, kind of the jokester of the group. Honestly, not really that funny of a character, but seems kind of like a crazy guy to me. And then there is a commander. Where is it? Kassad, who might be the upcoming villain. Not quite sure. Maybe, maybe not. Or he might be one of those red herring type of things. Who knows, but something to look out for as I'm continuing to read this book. And then there is Het Mastine, who I find to be incredibly interesting as I'm reading through this. He's described to be in a certain guild, the Templars. And I don't know, the way he has been speaking, the way he has been described, kind of reminds me of an elf in a sort of sense. So I might actually, I'm going to be a lot more interested to see how his character grows from here on out. And I believe that is everybody. Oh no, and the scholar, though he wasn't given much character. Besides that, he has a daughter, I believe, that's like a toddler. That's pretty much the only thing about that character so far. Oh, and the description of each of the characters being of some sort of religion. The consul and the Kassad. The consul, Kassad, and Lamia, I believe, are atheist. Might have to look that back up. Then the scholar is a Jew. The priest is obviously Catholic. Het Mastine is, I believe, Het Mastine has his own religion, specifically to the Templars. And Martin Silenus has lived for so long due to, I assume, some type of wonder drug that he has basically swapped, mishmashed with other religions throughout his life. That is the overall thing that I'll talk about characters. Again, not a lot is given, more so to Consul and Father Hoyt, though that's more so due to the plot and making them say specific things. That's overall the characters and my overall thoughts about them. Favorite so far is Consul and Hetmastine. I find them both to be the most interesting of them all. The most uninteresting character so far is Martin Selenis. I don't find him to be that interesting at all. I feel like he's going to be someone who is killed off early. Who knows, though? He might surprise me in terms of his character development. Bran Lemia is interesting. I wonder if she's going to be a bigger role throughout the book. It wouldn't surprise me. She is the only female character, so if they kill her off immediately, if Dan Simmons kills her off immediately because of the Shrike, dude, it's like, I don't know about that. But yeah, that is my overall thoughts of the characters. And now I will be moving on to plot, which I found to be the most interesting thing so far. Now we go to plot. Now the plot is a very interesting one. So what we get from the prologue immediately is the Consul being contacted by some sort of authority. I honestly forgot the name already. I'm not that good with memory. About going on a pilgrimage. Now the reasoning for this pilgrimage is because of an oncoming threat from the Ousters, I believe, which are barbarian-like civilizations that come and take random planets. Now Hyperion specifically is very important due to the time portals, I believe. Let me actually read here. Time tombs. And the authorities want Consul and his entire group to get there to do various things. The Ousters are a very interesting thing to mention here. It gives a time requirement. It gives a sort of oncoming threat that makes you sort of anxious throughout the entire story, because you know in the back of your mind that this whole entire civilization is coming to take Hyperion. But anyways, so we go throughout and we get introduced to every single one of the characters. After we get introduced to every single one of the characters, the scholar talks about wanting to have everyone in the group describe their stories as to the reason why they are in Hyperion. They all take a vote, and they start doing it. First one up the list is Father Hoyt. And his story, in terms of his mentor story, Father Jure. Let me make sure I got that right. Father Jure. Yes, I believe it's Father Jure. Yep, Father Jure. Just wanted to make sure. Father Jure's story is a very interesting one, and one that I'm glad that Dan Simmons started off with. If he didn't start off with this story, I might have honestly dropped the book. Because of a lot of the jargon here, a lot of the descriptions here, a lot of the terminology, I just didn't really know about. Honestly, the first part of the book, I might get this down to world building and reactions, so I won't talk about it too much. But the first part of the book was very confusing. Anyways, besides that, we get to Father Jure's story. Now, he is in certain exile, self-imposed exile from the Catholic Church, due to him faking a find on a certain planet. He is going to Hyperion to interact with the Bikra people, the Bikra indigenous tribe, who were described being there many years before by some other person. He arrives to Hyperion, has a couple interesting exchanges with different other people. Honestly, most of his descriptions are just talking about how shit Hyperion is. Everywhere he goes, he is either being met with some sort of immorality, the lack of care, that people have during that area, and just the awful, not awful, but the dangerous conditions of living in that area. Eventually, he arrives to a town where he gets paired up with Took to venture into the wilderness, basically, to come in contact with the Bikra people. They go through a very interesting situation where I believe there are plants, some sort of type of tree, the Tesla trees, which is very funny. Every single time Tesla was mentioned here, I kept thinking about the car. But the Tesla trees burn. There's a constant description of a fire plant going on. And during specific seasons, they are burning all the time. So it was very fun seeing Father Duray and Took get out of that situation. This is where a bit of the comedic tone comes into play, which I didn't think was going to have. I thought this entire book was going to be dark and grim and not have much of a comedic effect. But there's actually, for at least Father Duray's story, there's actually a lot of comedic moments throughout it. Anyways, they get through that situation, and they sleep for the night. During the night, the Bikra people, which Father Duray is looking for, actually slit his companion's throat. Father Duray obviously gets pissed, gets scared, walks around for a little bit, and then comes into contact with the Bikra tribe, who call themselves the 310, I believe. This part was honestly quite hilarious, because we have constant description of Father Duray trying to talk to these people and basically being confused at every single thing they said. They didn't really give that much answers. They kept talking about a crucifix type of thing. That was the reason why they didn't kill Father Duray in the first place, was because he had a cross on his neck, right? And it was just very interesting and very, honestly, hilarious hearing Duray constantly call these people dumb, constantly call these people idiots throughout the entire thing. Very, very funny throughout the entire book, honestly. And we eventually get to a point where Father Duray realizes a pattern. And by the way, throughout this entire thing, he is constantly being told, being mentioned of things that he assumes is some sort of cultish thing that's going on, some sort of inbreeding mishap that's going on, because that's what everybody thought. Everybody thought the Bikra people were so small in number that the reason why certain things happen is because of inbreeding, which I find to be very interesting. I thought they were going to go more to that idea, but they went in another direction that I thought was also interesting, but not as interesting as the evolution aspect. Now, the Bikra people look basically completely sexless. They don't really have any gender normic physical descriptions. They're all bald. They're all really short. And Father Duray constantly tries to examine them, but they don't want to be examined, probably because he is not officially part of his group. Now, eventually, while the Bikra are off foraging, Duray goes to a place where the Bikra go to at a certain time every single day. When he arrives at this place, this is where the description gets really wild, really interesting. There is this room, this area that was cut into a mountain or a side of a cliff, where there's basically this big-ass empty cathedral-type area, where there are these crosses imprinted in the wall of different sizes. And these crosses at a certain time of day are lit up by the light. This causes Father Duray to be extremely excited, because this is a legit find of some Christian artifact that is on another planet that, from what he told the reader, is old as crap. And so because of that, he scrambles back to the huts where the Bikra lived and tried to leave. But because of the fire plant season, he is not able to leave the Bikra place. Eventually, he gets into an altercation with the Bikra, them thinking he is not part of the cross, and when he reveals that he is part of the cross, they all indoctrinate him into the group. How so? One, by bringing him to the cathedral place, where the Bikra are all praying. This is where we get the first description of the Shrike, because as the entire Bikra were praying, the Shrike appears. Now, the Shrike is described as this metal being that has multiple arms, multiple limbs, as this silver metallic creature that its parts is constantly forming different parts. It's like constantly shifting and moving around in terms of its body. And it has red ruby eyes. Now, Duray comes into contact with this Shrike to the point where the Shrike, through lightning fast speeds, arrives straight to his face, observe him for a few moments, and then, with lightning fast speed again, just pops out of existence. Father Duray obviously scared by this, but after the event, the Bikra anointed him, so to speak. They grabbed one of the crosses that are embedded into the walls of this big-ass empty cathedral, and they hang it on Duray's neck. Now he is officially part of the group. And what Duray slowly realizes after this is that the cross, the literal cross that was embedded into the wall, starts digging into his body. And as this is happening, he describes it as being some sort of parasitic-like form. Whenever he uses his medical equipment to observe his own body, is described as the cross having tendrils that cover the entire body. Now, what does this do? To be put very quickly, it basically grants the person immortality, under specific conditions. He later sees one of the Bikra die, comes to help him, brings him over to the other people. They weren't too worried about it. And then eventually, during a certain time of the day, they bring the Bikra's dead body over to the cathedral. And during this cathedral, Duray describes that the body immediately decays and then immediately gets reborn. And because of this, effectively, they are immortal due to these living parasitic crosses. Duray is obviously surprised by this, and through examining the Bikra people, because he is now indoctrinated into their group, he realizes that the entire 70 people are sexless. They have no jiggly down there, besides the pee and shit. All in all, very interesting stuff to introduce into this world. And honestly, this entire story immediately hooked me in. The mystery of the Bikra people, the description of the wildlife, the description of people back in the villages, the Shrike appearing. Those things immediately hooked me back into this book. Because I'll be very frank here. The terminology in the beginning, specifically in the prologue, kind of turned me off. It felt like I needed to read a whole other book before I read this one. Because a lot of the terminology I just couldn't really wrap my head around. But hearing this story, Father Hoyt's specific story of Father Duray's, was very, very interesting and immediately hooked me in with the mystery aspect of it, the horror-like aspect of it. Very awesome. And that's all I'll give for plot right now. Again, don't want to dive too much into it. I just want to give my overall thoughts when it comes to the story. Now, world building. This I find to be the weakest aspect so far in the book. Hyperion has a decent amount of description throughout the first part. But everything else kind of turned me off, especially, like I said, the prologue, the terminology, and me not getting the terminology kind of made me confused as to what I was supposed to imagine in my brain. And the Yggdrasil ship that Hetmastine captains, trying to think about that in my brain, the descriptions of it, and honestly, it wasn't that good of a description in my opinion. This is something that Frank Herbert in his Dune books, in my opinion, does way better. He kind of goes into a aggressive descriptive style to the point where he describes something so much, so often, that you're given the perfect view. You're given the perfect idea as to what just happened. And that's something that I think Dan Simmons, at least in the prologue, did not do that well. But anyways, the description of the Shrike was a very interesting point. The cathedral-like scenario of Father Duray's story immediately expanded the world building for me. Was there some type of old alien species that was also Christian-like in nature? Or were they the ones that inspired humanity's Christian beliefs? Who knows? But it was very interesting to see how that was put forth. Now then, reactions. Like I said before, a lot of the comedic parts actually hit pretty hard. Oh, and Took's death, the suddenness of it, of being described that Took had his neck sliced during his sleep, was very sudden, and it hit pretty hard. And the description that Duray constantly calls the Bikara is honestly quite hilarious. I'm gonna actually stop this to find the specific line that I find to be the most hilarious and best line in all of part 1. So I'll come back to you guys when I find it. Here is the description I was talking about earlier. The best line in the entire first part, in my opinion. I'll read the previous sentence. The silence stretched. Finally, Al added one more sentence that I have been thinking about ever since. And if you did it again, he said, we would have to kill you again. This is the line. We stared at each other for some time after that, each convinced, I am sure, that the other was a total idiot. That line made me visibly laugh out loud, and was actually pretty freaking good comedic timing. That is my biggest reaction of the book so far. Now then, guys, that is all I have for you for the first part of Hyperion. I'll be making more videos about second, third, blah, 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 of each part of Hyperion. So far, really good. The Father Duray story really hooked me in, and I hope to be given better descriptions as to the world of Hyperion. So, I'll see you guys next time. Let's hope this book gets better.